This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining me tonight at momentous events here in London is Sapan Ghai, the corporate executive of Sovereign Metals. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. First of all, how are you? What's the event been like so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good to meet a number of shareholders and investors who've never heard of Sovereign. So it's good to get them up to speed on, who we are and what we've been doing.
Well, it's very important to get out there and tell people who you are. Otherwise, no one will know what the investment case is, will they? So, well, let's talk about that investment case then. So, give me the high-level overview, if you like, the elevator pitch for Sovereign Metals.
Yeah, sure. So, look, very quickly, in terms of history, Sovereign Metals has been in Malawi for quite some time. In 2018, we had we still do have a graphite project there called the Malingandi Graphite Project. We took that all the way through to a pre-feasibility study stage project. As part of that pre-feasibility study, we were doing a lot of work in terms of trying to figure out the metallurgy of taking that graphite out of the material. While we were doing that, what we were finding was in the material left over, the tailings, we kept finding titanium there. So we were like, well, why are we finding titanium? And look, titanium, when you find it, it naturally occurs really as two main minerals, either ilmenite, which is about 40 to 60% titanium dioxide, or rutile, which is around 95% titanium dioxide. And what we found is we have rutile, right? Great. So then we went to try and find more of it. And as we kept finding more and more and more, we ended up with this project now called Cassia, which is the world's largest rutile deposit.
Okay.
Along with the rutile sits the graphite. So we're actually one of the world's largest graphite resources as well.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, well, before we talk a little bit about that, just tell me, what is rutile then? What is its uses?
Yeah, most people probably haven't heard of rutile because there hasn't been a discovery of this size for about half a century.
Okay.
So no one's come knocking saying, hey, I've got a new rutile deposit for quite some time. We are now saying that. Not only is it a good rutile deposit, but it's the largest in the world. And look, when we found out just how big it is, one of the key things we wanted to do was to try and understand the commercial end uses, and part of that was doing some test work on it. We've done a couple of metallurgical test work programs on the rutile. We found that it can be used in all sorts of uses. Ultimately, rutile ends up in three main uses. About 60% of rutile ends up in the titanium pigment space. So anything that is painted white, coated white, has white pigment to it, that white, once upon a time, used to come from lead. We don't use lead in paint anymore. It now comes from titanium dioxide. Okay. And about 30% goes into the welding industry, because rutile is used as part of the flux for welding. And about 10% goes into titanium metal, which is probably where we're more familiar with titanium as a metal used to, everything from landing gears on jumbo jets all the way through to knee replacements, hip replacements, things like that.
Okay, so what's the market size then for rutile? Because as you say, people haven't probably heard of it. Yeah. It doesn't sound very sexy, making paint, but what's the market size?
Oh, look, it's easier to think about those three buckets. And look, in terms of the pigment industry, that's about a $15 billion per annum market. It's huge. In fact, last week I was at the TiO2 World Summit in Amsterdam, and it sounds very grand, but it was everyone who touches that world of titanium dioxide and pigments and whatnot. And it was interesting to see the end users, those that essentially what I like to think of as the customers of our potential customers in the future. And those were guys like Apple, Jaguar Land Rover, IKEA, more familiar companies. Now, as you move down or upstream, you start to understand that actually rutile feeds into that world. So look, pigment market, 15 to $20 billion per annum. The welding industry is huge. Now, rutile is only a small slice of that. The welding industry in total is probably about $30 billion a year. That's obviously not all rutile. And the titanium metal market is probably around $5 billion, although in this world where we're all trying or vying for a decarbonisation, you're finding a lot more uses of titanium in that space. So I see that market growing a lot more over time. So that kind of gives you a lay of the land in terms of the size of that market.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, and you said it's the biggest in the world, rutile and graphite. So they're pretty big statements to make. Why are you so confident in saying that?
Well, look, because we know that nothing else has been discovered that's been so big. Maybe something somewhere on the planet, but it hasn't been discovered yet. So.
And this is based on studies that have been done, work that's been done by you or previous operators on the project?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for us, what's interesting is we still don't know the exact size of this thing.
Yeah.
There's still pockets where we haven't really figured out just how much mineralization we have. In September, we announced a few drill results as part of our pre-feasibility study drill program, where most of the rutile resource we thought sits within the first 15 to 20 meters. We pushed a little further down, and in some pockets we found actually it goes down to 30 meters. So we don't actually know the size of this beast yet.
Okay, so give us an idea then of the work you're doing, the work you're going to be doing, the objective you want to achieve, really the value inflection points along the way, which will then lead up, of course, to the investment case into sovereign metals.
Yeah, so look, we announced a scoping study back in June this year, which said if you were to mine 30% of the known resource over a 25-year period, and you were to produce something like 250,000 tons of rutile and about 150,000 tons of graphite, the cost to first production would be something like $370 million, and that would give you an IRR of 36% after tax and an after-tax NPV of north of $1.5 billion.
Okay.
So actually quite nice capital intensity, very good returns on those. So now we're taking that scoping study and moving on to the pre-feasibility study, which will be hopefully out towards like the middle of next year.
Okay.
Between now and then, we're obviously drilling out our confidence on the mineralization. We're hopefully getting some of that inferred and indicated resource into the measured and indicated categories. Hopefully we'll get towards a reserve. We're doing a lot of that work. We're also, as you could imagine, once we told the world we had the largest rutile deposit ever found, a lot of people, it piqued the interest of a lot of people within the titanium industry, no matter how they fit in. So we announced a couple of MOUs.
Okay.
One with a company called Haskell, who are a US-based distributor of welding products, and therefore are clearly interested in our rutile. And we also announced recently an MOU with Mitsui, the large Japanese conglomerate. We're obviously, we're in discussions with a lot of other parties, so we're hoping maybe a few more MOUs which should come our way in the near future.
We potentially got some offtake partners or end user customers there then, already warming up.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Well, you talk about the PFS sort of H2 maybe next year.
Yeah.
So, are you fully funded to get there?
Yeah, so we raised about £10 million back in May, and we did that at 37p. We're currently trading at about 22, 23p. We raised that money to get us through to the PFS, so that money's there to ensure that we get to the PFS. So, fingers crossed I don't see us coming to the market anytime soon, hopefully.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Sapan Guy, the Corporate Executive of Sovereign Metals. Enjoy the evening at momentous events.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.